So Steve, something that's come up quite a lot is people that are wanting to purchase inside their SMSF, like from a high level without giving any financial advice or anything like that. Why is this purchase so important?
Question, and I can't give financial advice, you're qualified, so I'm just going to talk about this from a property lens. But having worked for the super funds, I love super, and I think it's a great concept. And if you're going to set up an SMSF, then you're looking to really, outperform really what the super funds are doing, which roughly on a balanced fund is 8.5 to 9% per annum, which is pretty good, yeah? And so I'm going to use a Spider-Man quote here when it comes to SMSF. And I'm not a Marvel geek or anything, but it's the great power, great responsibility quote that comes in. And that really is very pertinent for SMSFs. This is your retirement, this is your pension. I think the Australian system's great. And so, but if you do that and you set up the SMSF, you've got to get the right asset. Like you don't want to be gambling with anything. Because if you do it right, it's a very, very powerful strategy. You're using leverage in your favor. You're obviously using property. And so we still use those sort of core concepts that we're trying to buy in and the site that properties move in market cycles. So you want to buy in the start of a market cycle there. You can't extract equity in an SMSF. And so it's going to be a very boring set and forget type play. You want to get something with a decent yield. That's going to be maybe slightly newer, and because you don't want to be paying too many maintenance costs. The super fund purchase needs to be self-sustaining. You're going to be on a P&I loan in there. You're generally going to have an 80% lend. The contributions that you put into the super fund, that's why you need a decent yield, because it needs to be self-sustaining. You don't want to be tapping in to sort of cover the shortfall as you go through. So the yield needs to be a little bit more, so 4.5, I'd say. Not much less than that. And it's a very sort of different, boring type asset, you bet. But there's a number of strategies that you can do to really outperform. Again, what it boils down to is trying to get the portfolio size up as much as you can and let time do its thing, because you've got the leverage working. If you think about a super fund balance and it's 200,000, to wait 10 years, that might get up to 500, 600. But if you've leveraged that 200K into, say, a 700, 800K asset, well, you'll largely find, if you model that out, that you've really outperformed what the super fund's doing. But again, great power, great responsibility. Got to buy the right area, the right time, and the right asset. And
what would you say that where people are going most wrong in the SMSFs?
There's a lot of stuff people are doing wrong. So they're doing off the plan. They're getting caught out by a lot of people out there who are doing off the plan in the middle of nowhere, where they're potentially paying a developer's fee. And I think there's some nefarious activity that's going on there. And so if you think about it, like you want to be buying, as I said at the start of the cycle, if you're paying a developer's margin, you've got to be and you're paying, say, at least a 10% margin, maybe sometimes even more. It's actually more than 10% to get back to break even. It's more like 15%. And so you've already kind of white-handed that sort of progress that you'd have already. So certainly sort of like those off-the-plan sort of houses in the middle of nowhere, off-the-plan units, high-rises, they're quite popular with SMSFs, NDS, people chasing yield in the middle of nowhere, potentially chasing those 15% yields, helping again with a developer potentially doing a construction cost, going into the next hotspot, trying to get a quick uplift there. There are a number of things that people are getting this really badly wrong, and it does make me quite alarmed when I see it, because this is your retirement, and in many cases, if people are going to do that, they're much better off keeping their super funds.
We've seen a great example of that only 2 weeks ago, when two of the clients nearly went into the house and land in their SMSF. So I couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, and in those particular places, vacancy rates are 25%. And the established stock in really good suburbs in that particular area were trading at maybe sort of 150,000 discount. And so those are the markets that are primed to grow. Those are the markets you need to be buying in, not those markets where you're going to struggle to rent it out, where there's a rental guarantee. If there's a rental guarantee, that's a big kind of red flag. It means the sort of like person you're buying it on is going to pump in a bit of money to make sure it's that, but there's still enough margin of them to get really rich. And so that was a scary story what we saw a few weeks ago.